The little girl clutched her mother's hand so tightly that her small knuckles turned white. The city street around them was a blur of honking cars, shouting vendors, and hurried pedestrians, but the girl's focus was fixed entirely on a man standing a few feet away. He was impeccably dressed, his dark suit pressed perfectly, shoes shining as though polished for a magazine shoot. A gold watch peeked from under his cuff, glinting in the afternoon sun like a signal to those who needed hope. "Don't cry, Mommy," the girl said softly, her voice trembling but determined. She tugged at her mother's sleeve, pointing toward the stranger. "Maybe that man will help us." Her wide eyes were filled with a mixture of fear and faith, the kind only children could have. The mother knelt down, brushing her daughter's hair back from her tear-streaked face. "Sweetheart, I don't think anyone can help us," she murmured, her voice breaking. Her own eyes, heavy with exhaustion, scanned the crowded street, searching for some sign of kindness in a world that had given them little. But the girl's hope was infectious. She stepped forward, dragging her mother gently by the hand. "Please, Mommy, look at him. He looks like someone who cares, someone who can fix everything," she insisted, her voice rising just enough to catch the attention of the man. The millionaire had been engrossed in his tablet, reviewing a stack of contracts in the shadow of a nearby building, when he finally looked up. The sight of the small, desperate faces stopped him mid-scroll. At first, his reaction was one of mild annoyance. He wasn't used to being interrupted, but then something softened within him. The girl's gaze was not just pleading, it was unfiltered and pure, the kind of gaze that stripped away all pretense and demanded attention. The mother's breath hitched as she saw him glance their way. She couldn't find the words, only the weight of shame and fear pressing down on her chest. The little girl, sensing her mother's despair, squeezed her hand and whispered, "Sir, maybe you can help us." Her innocence was a quiet challenge, a question that had no room for refusal. For a moment, the city faded around them. The shouting vendors, the screeching brakes, the chatter of 1,000 strangers, all of it disappeared, leaving only the fragile hope of a child and the silent plea of a mother who had almost given up. The man straightened, closing his tablet with a soft click, and finally gave the mother and daughter his full attention. His dark eyes, sharp and calculating at first, softened as he took in the sight of the little girl's hopeful face and the mother's weary, tear-streaked one. There was something about their quiet desperation that tugged at him, something he hadn't felt in years, the raw need for kindness, unfiltered and impossible to ignore. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice calm but cautious, the kind used by people who were accustomed to control but weren't sure what to do with vulnerability. The mother opened her mouth, words failing her, and all she could do was shake her head. Her shoulders trembled, and a small sob escaped her lips. The little girl, sensing the uncertainty, stepped forward with a bravery that surprised even her. "Sir, maybe you can help us," she said again, her voice small but firm, carrying the weight of hope. "We don't have a place to sleep tonight, and we're really scared." She looked up at him with wide, pleading eyes, her tiny hand reaching out instinctively. The millionaire's gaze shifted from the girl to the mother. He noted the threadbare coat, the scuffed shoes, the exhaustion etched into every line of her face. He had seen poverty in statistics, on screens, in glossy charity reports, but never like this, raw and human. Standing just a few feet away, something inside him stirred, a mixture of unease and empathy. For a brief moment, he felt the pull of responsibility, a quiet voice reminding him of the boy he once was, frightened and overlooked. He inhaled, steadying himself. "Come with me," he said finally, extending a hand toward the little girl first. Her face lit up immediately, the weight of fear momentarily lifted, and she grabbed his hand without hesitation. Her mother hesitated, doubt clouding her mind. She had learned to expect disappointment, betrayal, and indifference. But something about the warmth in the man's eyes told her this was different. Slowly, she reached out, letting him guide them toward the sleek black car parked at the curb. As they walked, the little girl whispered, almost to herself, "See, Mommy. Maybe some people really can change everything." Her words were fragile but brimming with belief, and for the first time that day, the mother allowed herself to hope that perhaps kindness still existed in the world. The man opened the passenger door of his sleek black car, gesturing for the little girl to get in first. She scrambled into the seat, chattering softly to herself in a mixture of relief and excitement. Her mother lingered for a moment at the curb, biting her lip, hesitant to accept this unexpected offer of kindness. The man noticed her hesitation and gave a small, reassuring nod. "It's all right," he said gently. "You don't have to be afraid." She swallowed her fear and slipped into the backseat beside her daughter. The warmth of the car contrasted sharply with the chill of the street, and for the first time in days, the mother felt a strange sense of safety. The little girl leaned against her mother, still clutching her hand tightly, her eyes sparkling with curiosity as she peered out the window at the bustling city passing by. The millionaire drove in silence at first, the hum of the engine filling the empty spaces. He studied them quietly, noticing the mother's nervous glances, the girl's restless movements, the way they both seemed to carry the weight of the world on their small shoulders. He wanted to ask questions, but he didn't want to overwhelm them with his curiosity. Instead, he chose to let the silence speak, letting them adjust to the sudden change in their fortunes. Finally, the little girl broke the quiet. "Sir, where are we going?" she asked, her voice tentative but eager. Her mother gave her a gentle squeeze, silently telling her to be cautious. The man glanced at them in the rearview mirror, his expression softening. "Somewhere safe," he replied simply. "Somewhere you can rest." The mother's eyes welled up, tears threatening to spill over, but she blinked them back. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I don't even know how to repay you." "You don't need to repay me," he said firmly, shaking his head. "Sometimes, helping someone isn't about repayment. It's about doing what's right." There was a pause, and then he added, more quietly, "I think everyone deserves a chance." The little girl's hand reached out instinctively, brushing against his arm in a gesture of trust that made him flinch inwardly. It was a small, human moment, but it carried a weight that neither words nor contracts could capture. In that quiet car, amid the blur of city lights and distant traffic, an unspoken bond began to form, a fragile connection of hope, trust, and the possibility that their lives might change forever. The car slowed as they reached the quiet street where the millionaire lived, a secluded neighborhood lined with leafy trees and manicured gardens. The mother's breath caught as she looked around. Everything seemed impossibly clean, safe, and distant from the harsh streets they had wandered only hours before. The little girl's eyes widened in awe. It's like a castle," she whispered, pressing her face to the window. The man parked, killing the engine, and turned to them with a small, reassuring smile. "This will be your home for now," he said simply. "You'll have food, a warm bed, and some time to rest. No questions, no judgments. Just safety." The mother's hands trembled as she took in his words. She had spent nights convincing herself that kindness like this didn't exist, that the world had hardened against them, that her daughter and she were invisible to people who mattered. Yet here was a stranger offering everything, without expectation, without condition. Tears spilled freely this time, streaming down her cheeks as she hugged her daughter tightly. The little girl giggled through her own tears. "See, Mommy, I knew he could help us," she said, her voice filled with a mixture of relief and joy. She leaned against the man instinctively, a gesture of trust that surprised even him. He glanced down at her, and for the first time, he felt the raw weight of responsibility pressing against him. This wasn't just charity, it was human connection. He opened the door for them, and they stepped into the warmth of the house. The scent of fresh bread and clean linens greeted them, a stark contrast to the damp, cold streets they had fled. The mother looked around, her eyes wide with disbelief, as a small stack of blankets and a basket of clothes awaited them. The little girl ran to the table and picked up a piece of fruit, her tiny hands shaking with excitement as she took a bite. The millionaire watched silently, feeling a strange mixture of humility and unease. He wasn't used to this, the raw vulnerability of people who had nothing to give but trust. And yet, as he saw the mother relax, the girl laugh, and the tension in their shoulders ease, he felt something shift inside him. Perhaps, he thought quietly, helping them wasn't just about giving. It was about reminding himself that even in a world hardened by wealth and ambition, kindness could still exist. The mother knelt beside her daughter, brushing her hair back. "Thank you," she whispered again, her voice steady now. "From the bottom of our hearts." The little girl hugged her mother tightly, then looked up at the man with shining eyes. "See, Mommy, I knew he could help us," she said, her voice brimming with belief. And for the first time that day, all three of them allowed themselves to hope.